Over the weekend, Blaze Media tech reporter Josh Centers and Peter Gietl, Blaze Media managing editor for Return and Frontier Magazine, attended the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, Tennessee, a huge event now where Donald Trump, RFK Jr., and Vivek Ramaswamy were also in attendance. Peter actually had the chance to get RFK's opinion on Bitcoin's role in America's financial future. Let's take a listen to that.
Bitcoin is the most attractive currency. So if we want to save the American dollar as the global reserve currency, we've got to attach it to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is infinitely divisible. It's transactional on your cell phone at light speed, with no friction, with no payments to banks, there's person-to-person transactions that have no fees and no taxes. You can move it across borders. And right now, somebody who wants to leave Iraq or somebody who wants to leave Argentina, they are subject to confiscation of all their wealth at the border. And with Bitcoin, that can't happen. Everybody can move, so it's a weapon against totalitarian control.
Peter, it wasn't long ago when, and I mean, even on the floor of this conference, there were some politicians and even reporters who were sort of like, what's a Bitcoin? Now everyone's talking about it. You saw RFK up there, other guys we can talk about too. What was your sense of just how hot this topic is and whether we're going to hear and see more politicians sort of stampeding into the Bitcoin space?
Absolutely, James. This was really the coming out moment in terms of politically for Bitcoin. I mean, you've been writing very deeply and eloquently for years about Bitcoin. I first wrote a feature about it back in 2014, but it was always viewed as something that was kind of on the fringe. Is this fake? Is it a scam? We don't want to be part of this. And now we're seeing a real trend where, especially on the GOP side, they're starting to embrace a really new type of technology that has transformed the financial world.
Josh, on the big screen, a lot of Republicans, a lot of independents, libertarians, self-styled rogues and mavericks and scoundrels. Not a lot of Democrats on the floor there in Nashville. What do you make of that?
The only one I believe was there was Representative Mo Kana. Otherwise it was mostly Republicans and libertarians. I think it's very interesting how the Democrats are missing such an obvious opportunity at technological progress. Just a few years ago, the Democrats were seen as the party of the future, the party of technology. Obama famously was embraced by the tech industry. And the Biden-Harris regime has rejected the tech industry. They've been sending the SEC after people in the crypto space. They seem to have a personal grudge against Elon Musk. And now the tide is starting to turn where the tech industry is realizing that the Democrats are not their friends.
Peter, we got a clip of Senator Hagerty talking about Joe Biden and Bitcoin. Let's take a listen and talk about it.
America needs to own this. America needs to be the home of this. We need to be supportive of it, not push it offshore. Yet the current administration has done everything they can to quash the industry and to quash American innovation. I want to see that change tomorrow. I want to see this industry thrive here, and so does President Trump.
There's some evidence that Kamala's people are trying to get her to maybe mend some fences with crypto people, maybe give them the sense that the Democrats aren't just going to scorch them and send their value down to zero. Do you think there's any viability for that kind of approach? Or do you think that really folks in crypto, folks in Bitcoin, and for that matter, broader across the part of Silicon Valley that's really taken an opportunity to maybe align with Trump, do you think there's any going back for them at all?
Personally, I think that ship has sailed. Bitcoin tried to go out, or the people in Bitcoin, the CEOs that I've spoken to, some of the big holders that own a lot of money, they wanted to go about playing the game the right way, where they hired lobbyists and they gave money to the PACs, just to, not for special treatment, but just to ask, please leave us alone. Don't regulate us into the ground. Don't destroy this industry. And they feel that the Biden administration has stabbed them in the back and went against them. And they're really a single issue voting bloc. And I think there was a lot of anger about what happened, and in turn, a lot of excitement of what President Trump and Senator Scott and Haggerty and Blackburn and Loomis said at the event about how they want to embrace Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, isn't one of the signature moments of this entire event was Donald Trump telling us who he was going to fire, was it not?
Yes, absolutely. He promised on day one to free Ross Ulbricht, who was the founder of the Silk Road, and and he also promised to fire Gessler, who's head of the SEC, and roll back the Operation Choke Point 2.0, which we've reported on a lot at Return, which is basically these regulations trying to capture the entire financial system and also specifically make it as difficult as possible for people to have the freedom to conduct their finances and how they see it, and even if that includes Bitcoin.
Yeah, let's talk about Gensler a little bit. Hard to talk about Donald Trump's appearance without mentioning this promise that he made on stage, specifically with reference to Gensler. Let's take a look at the footage. It really speaks for itself, but then we're going to speak some more about it because it's just that important. Watch.
On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. I didn't know he was that unpopular. Well, I didn't know he was that unpopular. Let me say it again. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler. Whoa.
That is pure, unadulterated political instinct right there. I think a lot of Americans, that Trump head tilt, they're like, who is this guy? Peter, why was the crowd just so excited for Trump to get rid of this guy?
Well, that line by far got the biggest round of applause, and it was already a really excited room about having Trump there to speak, but it just went crazy when he made that line, or when he said that about getting rid of Gensler. I mean, again, it goes back to what I was talking about. They have, especially Senator Warren, has been on the warpath, no pun intended, to stifle and destroy the entire industry centered around Bitcoin. And the government doesn't have the ability to go grab the Bitcoins. That's part of what makes it so intriguing and so exciting. But they can use these regulations to try to destroy the companies that work around with and that people use on a day-to-day basis.
Josh, let me go to you. Was there a feel in the crowd, not just when Gensler was mentioned, but just kind of on the floor, like over the course of the thing? Did you detect a feeling that it was, in fact, not so over and that we were so back, to use the terminology that a lot of these guys are throwing around? Did it feel like there was that optimism there, or was there sort of a tension? You look at some of the polls and it's kind of seesawing depending on which source you trust or which sites you scroll through. Did it feel like for the attendees there that they were going to win?
No tension whatsoever, James. In fact, it could not have been more positive. The energy was simply electric. I've never been to a more positive or supercharged conference. I didn't hear, honestly, even one word about Kamala Harris at all, especially since she decided to back out of the conference entirely. But no, incredibly positive and very much a feeling that we are going to win.
Can I ask let's drill in on that, because what I'm very curious about is if there were people there who maybe sort of roll their eyes at Trump. They're not necessarily Republican, right? They're independent thinkers. Do you think there are people that are there who are really moving to actual support of Donald Trump because of what's going on and everything you guys have been talking about?
Absolutely. I think the Bitcoin people are completely on the Trump train now. There were some RFK supporters in attendance, but overall, you saw lots of Trump shirts, Trump hats, tons of cheers for Donald Trump. The room is totally packed. There was very much a Trump crowd now. Trump promised them pretty much everything they've ever wanted, and he's their guy.
Something I want to talk a little bit about, it's a little more inside baseball, but I think it's really a huge story waiting to pop here. Trump has also started to make some noise about setting up what he referred to as a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, this is an idea where, if there's been things like sovereign wealth funds for a long time. Governments like to kind of accumulate certain assets and sit on them and say, if things go wrong, it's good for a rainy day. Otherwise, you kind of watch the wealth grow. Especially with the dollar looking kind of weird, it still seems seems like it's the best house in a bad neighborhood. But still, this idea of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, it's spread to Singapore already. The Singapore government's talking about it. There have been rumblings right here in Texas where people are saying, hey, maybe Texas should just buy up all the Bitcoin that is mined in Texas so that you achieve this kind of financial independence. I'm curious what y'all think about this. From my standpoint, you go back to the white paper where it was laid out what Bitcoin is and how it works. Whole idea is sort of peer-to-peer currency system where you don't have to rely on the government, you don't have to rely on concentrated power in order for ordinary Americans to really create markets, create things of value, and buy and sell and exchange and trade freely without having to pass any kind of litmus test from anyone in charge. What do you guys think about this idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve? You think it's something that has legs, and do you think it's really just going to rally more of these Silicon Valley types to the Trump campaign?
As we're sitting here talking, there's actually a rumor that the Biden administration is trying to sell off the Bitcoin that the U.S. government currently has. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but it would not surprise me to come from the Biden administration. But this much, I think, is clear. Even those of us who thought that Bitcoin was a joke, it's clearly not going away. At this point, it's been 15 years, and there's too much money at this point. It's here to stay.
Peter, what do you think?
Well, I think Trump danced around that issue a little bit, but he did make the promise not to sell any of the Bitcoin that the U.S. government has. Most of that has been seized in criminal investigations. But I think if either Texas or one of these states or even one of these countries, whoever is the first one to take the lead on this and start buying up Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, they're going to have a tremendous advantage over the rest of the world as the inflationary aspects keep hitting the economies around the world as the central banks keep printing money, and they just refuse to stop printing money.
Well, now's a really great time. It was a great time a couple of years ago, and it's a great time right now for you out there to just take a look at Bitcoin, see what all the fuss is about. Tremendously powerful technology, one of the very few that ordinary people can take advantage of right now to kind of bend, to our will, the will of the people, protecting our way of life, protecting our form of government. Check it out. It's not as complicated as it seems. That's going to do it for us for this show. As I thank Josh Centers here, Peter Gietl, and of course the great Matt Peterson. I want to make sure that you all subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and do not forget to rate and review the show with, of course, the very best of ratings. That helps others discover the show as well. We will be back to break it all down with you tomorrow. Look forward to Jill's return, hopefully. I'm James Poulos saying thanks for watching Blaze News Tonight.